right, Madam Chair. The first thing that we need to do, we need to vote to change the agenda. We need to add, and I sent this out to you all, the resolution allowing the authority to, we're basically making findings regarding emergency conditions to have a virtual meeting. I'll let, Dan, should they vote to amend the agenda, or should you want to go ahead and talk to them about what the resolution is and then allow them to change the agenda?
I get all these tough questions. This is like a law school exam. We have a pandemic that goes on for 18 months. They changed the open meetings law. The governor issues a sort of lukewarm emergency declaration, which is not a state of health declaration, which means that we, under the new law, in order for us to meet virtually in the absence of a federal or state or local declaration of emergency, then there needs to be a resolution by the agency, which is us, we're an agency, finding that there are emergency conditions that necessitate meeting virtually. And of course, how do you do that? I mean, if you're not able or it's unwise to meet in person, how do you adopt the resolution? Well, I think that you've got to do that at the virtual meeting, and I think it should be your first agenda item. And then we got the issue, which Chris dealt me, of how do you amend the agenda if you haven't adopted the findings about emergency conditions. So I would suggest that we just be outlaws and adopt the virtual meetings emergency finding first, and then ratify that when we consider the agenda. And I think I probably already covered most of the reason for that. Our open meetings law historically has allowed folks to join as a member by telephone conference call under limited conditions, that there'd be a medical condition or that they be outside the jurisdiction and they can't do that more than twice a year. This is not that. This is the provision that's always been in our law, but has not been used until last year, where there can be an emergency declaration authorizing all members to meet virtually. So what has happened is that at the end of June and on July 1st, the governor terminated the health state of emergency. And he issued another declaration, which is good through the end of this month, saying that there is a state of emergency which has to do with healthcare, logistics, and the economy and things like that. So that you can't really look at that declaration and say, does this mean that that it necessitates us meeting virtually? But fortunately, in the last session of the General Assembly, the legislature passed and the governor signed House Bill 98, which lets us as a downtown development authority and an agency make findings that there are emergency conditions that necessitate us meeting virtually. So we've got to do that as the first. And what you have in front of you, I guarantee, is the very first resolution that's ever been written in this state to do that. And it was written last night. So sorry for the late delivery of it, but we need to do it. And I listed some reasons that I'm aware of, and Chris and I talked about it. I mean, these are not just made up to look good. These are real things that exist in the city of South Fulton that I think justify our meeting virtually. But it's necessary for the authority members to vote to approve this. And if you agree, then all that's necessary for somebody to make a motion to approve the resolution is presented, and then a second, and then majority vote to approve it. But I'm happy to answer any questions now if there are any.
No question.
No questions, perhaps Madam Chair would call for a motion.
Yeah. Well, I think so. As Madam Chair has had some surgery on her mouth, I think Don is going to take over the meeting as Vice Chair. So Don, I think you're in charge.
All right. Again, are there any questions on the resolution? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
John Perlin, motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
and who was seconding?
Pastor
All right,
Pastor
Williams.
Williams, second. Mr.
Very
Pearlman.
good. We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Sean Perlman voting in favor.
You could just do your hand up on your.
Yeah.
Your screen
If you
down.
would raise your hand.
In
Any
favor.
objections? All right, that motion is approved.
Thank you.
That
Board.
resolution is approved.
Thank you, board members.
Right, great.
Should we go now to the approval of the minutes or wait?
Agenda ratification.
Agenda.
We need to ratify the agenda to add this item actually is item 2 on the agenda after calling the meeting to order.
Okay, we have the revised agenda before us.
No, you're just gonna accept a motion to add the resolution to the agenda.
All right, I'll entertain that motion, please.
Make a motion
John
to add
Perlman
that.
making a motion to amend. John Perlman seconding the motion to amend. Someone beat me to it.
All right,
So Pastor Williams moved and seconded by Mr. Pearl.
all right, all in favor? Raise your hand, please.
John Perlman voting in favor.
Andre White voted in favor.
All right, that's approved.
All right, so then now item 3 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We did not send out the minutes yet, so if we can move that item to the August meeting, we'll have both the July and April minutes for that meeting.
Very good. Do we need a motion for that? To move it to the August meeting?
I don't think so, but I'll defer to Dan.
It would be appropriate either to do that or to call for a motion and there not being one, we could move on down the agenda. Either one would work.
Well, I'd prefer we at least put it on the agenda for August, rather than just say we didn't have a motion for a meeting. So I will entertain a motion to move the previous meeting's minutes to our August meeting. I'll have a motion, entertain a motion, please.
Make a motion that we move those minutes to the following meeting.
Do I hear a second?
I second the motion, John.
All right. All in favor? Show of hands, please. Any
Andre
opposition?
White in favor.
Any opposition? All right, then we'll move our meetings for the minutes for the previous meeting to our August agenda, where we will review and take action on at that time. Next order of business is our new business.
Yes, sir.
Project Savior Inducement Resolution.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Chair. We have a presentation from Michael Williams, who represents the church in the capacity as their attorney. He's going to share with us a little bit about the project that they're working on. Then afterwards, Mr. McCray has information to share as it relates to the resolution and some advisement for the board. So, Mr. Williams, I'm going to share my screen with you. If you'd please go ahead and I think you should have the right to share your screen. You go ahead and go through your presentation.
Okay. A little bit about the project that they're working on. And then afterwards, Mr. McCray has information to share.
All right, good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Presiding Officer, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Michael Williams. I'm the attorney for the church. We have a presentation about a senior housing initiative that we're very excited about. And so first of all, can everyone see the screen? Okay. So this is a project that is being initiated by Lifted Reformation of Christian Churches, which is a nonprofit corporation with 4 charter churches, one of which
Excuse me,
is,
Michael, you
yes.
might want to start your PowerPoint because we're looking at the small.
Ooh,
If you just want to click the little.
let's go back. So can everyone see that?
Yeah, it's just not in presentation mode.
Yeah.
Well, let me,
Mike, you'd need to hit slideshow and then from current slide, that would make it full screen.
I think I had it on the wrong screen. So let's,
Huh.
how's that?
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, they gave me 2 monitors and I had it on the wrong monitor. So thank you very much. Again, the project is being initiated by Lifted Reformation of Christian Churches, which is a nonprofit corporation with 4 charter churches. And locally here in Georgia, it's being spearheaded by Spread the Word Ministries. And I'm sure most of you all have had the pleasure of meeting Pastor John Battle, but he is leading the effort out of Spread the Word Ministries over on Washington Road. The impetus of this project really came from an observation that a number of the local congregants were having very much difficulty in finding affordable housing, and some were actually leaving the South Fulton area and going to other parts of the city to find affordable housing. So Spread the Word commissioned their own feasibility study to look at the housing market and to determine whether there was actually a real need and to determine sort of what level of affordable housing could be sustained in the area. And I would just note that the city of South Fulton had previously been working on affordable housing projects and is partnering with the National League of Cities on the same. These are just some data that the National Income Housing Coalition has estimated. Almost 200,000 units are needed for affordable housing statewide. About a quarter of this fills the need for senior housing across the state. That's nearly 50,000 units that are needed. Our own assessment for the South Fulton area showed that there's a need for at least 700 units for senior affordable housing. So of course we wanted to do something about that. So in concert with their partner churches, Spread the Word is planning to develop a 3-building, 240-unit senior housing complex in the Washington Road area. We're looking at each unit consisting of 80, or each building consisting of 80 apartment units split roughly 2 to 1 for 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. And they're looking at a green space and a recreational amenity as part of that. And to be clear, the project, once initiated, will provide housing for seniors in the entire area, not just for congregants of Spread the Word Ministries. So attached are just some conceptual plans for what it might look like. Final plans have not been done, but these are some of the preliminary plans for the complex. And I'm just going through these real quick. Please stop me if folks want to take a closer look. This is a rendering of the kind of green space and recreational space that we're looking at. It's anticipated to be more of a passive recreational facility without any specific active components, whether it's pickleball or some of the other types of active recreational amenities you see in some senior housing. This is projected to be more of a passing recreational area. Just kind of to get a sense, there's already been an expression of significant support from the city. Pastor Battle has met with a number of folks. We're working on getting the designs prepared. It's been signaled to us that we'll get a lot of support and swift action from the city once we are ready to proceed. So we're, going methodically down the path to get the project done. So, this is more of in the nature of an introduction of the project, but we would like the authority to move forward with an inducement resolution today, which will give us some additional ammunition as we put together a financing package and to get the project financed. But we're continuing to work on the plans and working on getting financing. And, as that progresses, we'll be back with the staff and bond counsel with a specific plan down the road. And this last screen is more just sort of perspective. After the inducement resolution, we have a lot of work to do, but down the road, the inducement resolution contemplates a conduit financing structure, which is bullet point 1. There has been some preliminary discussion about, whether housing credits or low-income housing credits might be available for this project. And then there's some other ancillary things depending on how the financing is structured, whether or not grant funding would be available, or if it's held by a for-profit entity but managed on behalf of the church, whether tax abatement might be necessary. So that's sort of down the road. But we wanted to give you sort of an introduction of things that might be on the table once we get the everything in order, once we're ready to actually come back to you to get a conduit bond financing adopted. But for today, just backing up, just an inducement resolution, which will signal to the market that there is preliminary support from the Development Authority, and I'll defer to Dan in terms of specifically what that means for tax purposes. If we're going to do a tax exempt bond financing structure, that inducement resolution is a necessary prerequisite. So that is pretty much it. We very much appreciate the opportunity to present this to the Downtown Development Authority. I will certainly open it up to questions, and Mr. Presiding Officer, I'll just open it up to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Dan, did you have anything to add before we open it to questions?
I think that's a good presentation of the project, and I do understand. I've seen similar church-affiliated senior living projects, and they do fill a need, and the presentation makes a good case for that. We do have a document on the agenda, which is the adoption of the inducement resolution, which has significance for federal income tax and bond purposes. But basically, from the policy perspective of the authority, we heard Mike say that the city had expressed support. If the DDA is willing to adopt the inducement resolution, then that expresses our support. It expresses our official intent, which is significant under the federal income tax laws. And, hopefully without representing a commitment for the DDA to pay any money or repay any bonds, or the city to pay any money or repay any bonds, despite that, it hopefully will help the church in negotiating with lenders, because we really can't do much more until we have a financing commitment on it.
All right, very well. So I want to go back over before we open it. Dan, did you say hopefully no commitment from the DDA at this time, correct?
Says that in big capital letters. Yes, sir.
All right. All right, to the board members, questions, please. Well, I have several.
Trying to wrap my mind around this a little bit, Dan. Of course, I'm new to this. So is this sort of like just a pre-approval? Are we just providing an endorsement so that they can begin their preliminary work that is needed to get the project going?
This is what's on the agenda today, the request before the DDA today, is for us to approve an inducement resolution, which also authorizes a letter of intent. And the significance of that is that it's the first step in the bond process. It does indicate a willingness on the part of the DDA to issue the bonds. And as far as the IRS is concerned, from that point forward, qualified expenditures that might be made out of equity or out of a bank loan can be refinanced with tax exempt bond proceeds. And you can look back 60 days and pick up expenses or expenditures that may already have been made. So it does express support. We really shouldn't endorse projects. What we're doing is to say that in our capacity as the Downtown Development Authority and as the issuer of the revenue bonds, which would be repaid by the borrower, not by the DDA and not by the city, that we're willing to take this first step towards the issuance of the bonds. Now, hopefully there'll be other steps that lead to a bond closing and the construction of the project and success and the revitalization and redevelopment of the central business district as a consequence of that. But there may not be. This may be the first and only step. But the longest journey begins with a single step. And for this project, from a bond financing perspective, this is the first step.
Thank you.
Other questions, please? Speak right up. I do have a couple, Mr. Williams. Do you have a anticipated timeline for the project from now to completion?
The design plans are sort of in very preliminary stage. And so we would be looking at, assuming, the financing was in place, which we anticipate getting some level of commitment from financial institution within the next few months. And we would be looking at 4 to 6 months thereafter for designs, and then getting our contractor engaged. And so realistically, we would be looking at breaking ground. That the ballpark, I would say, would be second to third quarter of next year. So spring to summertime next year, assuming everything falls into place.
Very good. I know you covered this. I didn't quite pick it up. Are you both owning and operating, or will someone else operate the facility?
The plan is we'll have a management company actually sort of, operate and manage it on behalf of the nonprofit. And so that is, who that will be and all that has not been determined. But the nonprofit itself will not be managing the day-to-day. There'll be contracted management.
And just historically, I know one of the issues that comes up, at least in the Old National area, with these projects such as these, is will it be limited to senior housing? We're saying it's a senior housing project, but what's to prevent others from coming in? How do you manage so it's not just open to anybody? How do you manage that tenancy?
So it will be limited to senior housing. Depending on the structure, there will likely be covenants that's limited to 55 and above, I'm not prepared to give specific details on exactly what that would look like in terms of the controls to ensure that it's 55 and older, but the intent is it will be 55 and older only.
And I think the final question I have is, do you have any idea of jobs to be created or anticipated, both in construction and ongoing?
I don't have good numbers on the construction side of that, but it would be commensurate with sort of a project of its size and scale. Ongoing after construction, I would anticipate it would be less than a dozen full-time equivalents in terms of employment, because once it's ongoing, you're just talking about a management office, maintenance, janitorial services, things of that sort.
All right, other questions, please?
I know you said you haven't explored the low-income housing tax credit piece just yet, which would possibly open you up to funding, 15 years in to do rehabilitation on the site. Have you all factored that in? Because historically in many communities, these developments are built, they're fabulous in the beginning, and then 15 years or so from now, they're pretty run down and create other issues. So have you all thought about those pieces and how that'll be handled?
We have thought about it, not quite in terms of the 15 years down the road, but we have a low income tax credit consultant who's helping, guide some of the internal discussions about that. And so that is on the table, but in terms of the sequencing and the timing and getting an allocation from the Department of Community Affairs, all that sort of stuff is still a work in progress.
This is John Perlman. Can I ask a couple of questions, and apologies if they was covered while I was dealing with my other meeting. Is this proposed financing covering 100% of the development costs, or is there additional developer equity on top of that?
So again, as part of this is, our conversations with our financing institution, there will be some level of equity, but exactly what that looks like, I can't commit to 100% now. But the majority of the funding from soft costs all the way through into construction, we would anticipate being covered by the bond issuance with some level of equity, and sort of what that specific ratio will be is to be determined.
Well, I am by no means an expert on senior housing. I am on the board of an organization that does provide it, but I've not been involved in constructing it. The number of 183,000 per unit, which is 44 million divided by 240 units, I have no basis to say it's good or bad because we don't know the rest of the details. It seemed to be in line with what my quick internet research indicated for these things. But does our development authority have any input into the quality of the operation, the size of the units, stuff like that, in terms of how this is perceived in the marketplace? Because there's a whole level of range of quality of these senior housing facilities. I don't know where a church affiliated senior housing project development fits into that range. I don't know if we're supposed to be asking those kind of questions. I just didn't want us to be, overfunding, something that's not up to the standards that we're trying to establish for our, development areas, or, so you see where I'm heading, I guess.
What you're discussing could be addressed by conditions or agreements in the bond documents or in the inducement resolution. A lot of transactions have what's called a memorandum of understanding, or MOU, that spells that out. A community's leverage for that is in the incentives. And right now, our only incentive is control over the access to tax exempt financing, which is for the 4% tax credit, the key to getting the low income housing tax credit as well. So it's valuable. And Mike mentioned also the possibility of seeking possibility of property tax abatement, because these tax credit structures require the project entity to be a for-profit entity. You'd lose the statutory property tax exemption. So there are some bargains that could be made, but they haven't been made yet. But that's a very good question.
Well, that is a very good question, and thanks, Dan, for your input. I just want to be sure that as we head down this path, that this is not our only opportunity to continue to ask questions and follow up and follow through and get answers for things that we think we need, that we're not kind of dealing ourselves out of it with just this first step. So
It's correct that this is just the first step, and there'll be many more steps in it. The letter of intent that's attached to the inducement resolution does not contain a section about a memorandum of understanding. If it's of that level of concern for the board members, we could, if you approve the resolution at all, you could approve it subject to there being added a provision for a memorandum of understanding between the DDA and the borrower regarding the project, period. And we can flesh that out later on.
You know, and we would not object to that.
This is John speaking again. I would like to see that, just because, you know, I again, we're all new to this thing, but you know, I would prefer not to vote to say, sure, here's $44 million tax deal without, you know, a corresponding, you know, requirement that it be for a, you know, I'm just pulling words out of the air, a 3-story masonry construction interior corridor, you know, building, you know, with a minimum square footage of X and common facilities of X square feet, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I just don't want to see us, you know, I'm sure Mr. Williams has no intention to do anything less than quality, but, you know, theoretically they could put, you know, 240 mobile homes on the property and, you know, still qualify. So I think we should have some statement of what we're getting.
Yeah, I want to chime in if I may, Mr. Vice Chair. Some of this stuff, and I understand exactly what the DDA's board members are trying to do, and I think you all are right on. We want to make sure down the road this doesn't turn into something that we don't want in the community. A lot of the concerns that you're going to have as far as material and stuff is going to be handled during the zoning and planners and I forgot what the process I'm talking about. But when they submit their construction documents, a lot of that stuff's going to be addressed in that. But I think we can put some things, as Dan said, in the memorandum that says, in order for you to kick in these incentives, you have to perform at this particular level. Some of it's going to be contingent on zoning with the city anyway, so we can't supersede what the zoning is going to be. I just wanted to make that point.
We
For that
could, for
clarification.
example, approve the resolution by stating that in the letter of intent, there shall be added a new paragraph 26, which will read, it shall be a condition to the issuance of the bonds that the issuer and the borrower enter into a mutually agreeable memorandum of understanding regarding the details of the project.
well, given our feedback, is that your recommendation, Dan? And do we do that at this point?
I think it is my recommendation. This is, Mike, you may or may not be aware, this is this DDA's first transaction. We've got a very good board, and they're very keenly interested and concerned about the future of the city and the downtown area. So to recognize and support the concerns expressed by the board members, it would be my recommendation that if a motion is made to approve the inducement resolution, that it add, provided that the letter of intent is changed to include a new paragraph 26, which would be the sentence that I just read. And I can actually email that to all the board members right now.
In the meantime, are there any other questions from the board members? Concerns, questions?
Email has gone.
All right, Chris, so what is our new resolution then? With that added?
So what you're going to do is make a motion to approve the inducement resolution with the added sentence that Dan had. So you'll want to add that sentence into your motion so that make sure it gets added. So whoever wants to be the maker of that motion.
Vice Chair will entertain that motion.
And Dan sent the sentence to you. So all you got to do is say, I make a motion to adding whatever that sentence Dan just sent out.
I can read.
Okay, I'll make the motion that I can juggle these two screens here, that we approve the letter of intent with the addition of paragraph 26, which states it shall be a condition to the issuance of the bonds that the issuer and the borrower enter into a mutually agreeable memorandum of understanding regarding the details of the project.
This is John speaking. Just now with my developer hat on, should we limit it to say the construction details or design details? Because details is a very general word, and I don't want somebody coming back and saying, I want to see the menu. I think we're concerned with the construction of and development of the property, not with that level of detail.
Mr. Presiding Officer, if I could just chime in, we would appreciate some sort of limitation like that. Obviously, we're going to have a set of plans that are consistent with the city's design guidelines and things of that sort. But in terms of some of the more minute details, it would be better for us if it was limited to construction materials, design plans, things of that sort.
Well, I have one question about that, because the question that Mr. Winbush raised was around, some possible employment opportunities. I think that is one of the concerns that we have as well. So when it comes to the construction work, how is it a job creator within the community? Does that fall within that in that spectrum? Some of the questions that we raised earlier, outside of the actual construction piece.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I also want to add in that we do have an economic development incentive ordinance, which was adopted by mayor and council, which also plays a part in when an incentive is offered to a developer. So I think it's appropriate to leave it broad more than just construction, because there are some other deliverables that are going to have to be made as a condition of the issuance of the incentives to the project. And they're not ominous by any means, but there are some things that we'll need to work out. So I think it is more than just construction that we're talking here.
Mr. Williams, in response to that?
Well, our plan must be in compliance with, all the local codes and ordinances. And so, a statement that, it will be in compliance with those, is fine. And so I really have no objection to Mr. Pike's statement.
All right, then. So does that mean we're going with the original sentence? Is that right? The added sentence for paragraph 26, leaving it as it is?
For the sake of this moment, that we will accept that.
John, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good with that. Leave it the way it is.
All right.
I think with respect to the zoning codes, people ask for variances all the time. So there was something that you may have seen on Butner Road where developers coming in with tiny houses 5 feet apart from each other. And, that sort of thing, it was met with objections. And so I think Mr. Pike's correct. As long as we're consistent with zoning, we should be okay.
Very good. Is there any other discussion? Questions, discussion before we vote? We have a motion, I think, do we not?
You didn't get a second, Mr. Vice Chair.
I second
Technically, your
Mr.
motion
Witness's
dies from the
motion.
lack of a second.
John Perlman, I second his motion.
All right, we have a motion that's been properly seconded. All in favor? Would you raise your
John
hand?
Perlman in favor.
Are there any objections?
Nope, in favor.
And the motion carries.
Thank you, board members. Good discussion.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I want, let me just say, I really want to appreciate the direction, Dan, you're giving, and Chris, and also the discussion from the board. I think we'll get used to doing this, and I think it's appropriate we ask our questions up front and do our due diligence. And if there's anything we don't understand, let's put it on the table, and we can be persuaded one way or the other, but I think it's good that we have a healthy discussion, and I appreciate it. Thank you also, Mr. Williams, for your presentation.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you very
I'll-
much, everyone. And if I may, Mr. Presiding Officer, may I be excused? I have to get on the road to go down to Florida to get my mom.
You may be. Thank you. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you all.
Safe travels.
All right, moving right ahead through our agenda, we have economic development updates. Would that be you, Mr. Pike?
Yes, sir. That would be me. Just wanted to update you all on a couple of things that we've been working on. We did officially get our letter from the Georgia Department of Revenue that both of our tax allocation districts have been certified. So we will actually, if I'm not mistaken, this tax year, we should see a little bit of money. We have not gotten the school system in the county to concur with the TAD, so we won't see their portion of it, but we will see the city's portion of it into the TAD fund. And so we'll be monitoring that to make sure we get all those funds moved over into appropriate accounts. Just a reminder that the DDA is the official redevelopment agency for the city, so you all actually manage the TAD projects on behalf of the city council, or in the residents rather. And I also sent out, because I know Mr. Perlman has been very adamant about getting a map that he can read. And so we sent those out yesterday as well, that has each parcel that's in the TAD. And then there's a list of parcel numbers that also coincide with that map. So you know exactly which parcels are in the tax allocation district, whether it's East Side TAD or the West Side TAD. Thumbs up from John. The other thing that I want to give the board an update on is about the town center. We, in the end of June, we did a town center town hall that was hosted by Councilwoman Gums. That was a great meeting. We got a lot of feedback, and basically it was basically a listening session about what people want to see in the town center. And so we're excited to get that feedback from residents. What will happen in August, the firm that we're working with will do a preliminary site plan. We will then present that site plan in August at another community meeting, kind of spelling out, looking at the things that spoke to the feedback that we received from residents. Well, then at that meeting also get some more feedback, tweak that plan a little bit more, and then hopefully have something to present to mayor and council for their approval. And then it is anticipated, and it's going to be my recommendation that once mayor and council approve that, then we start looking at putting together an RFP to possibly have a master developer selected to help move that project forward. So that's kind of what we're looking at this point. I'll keep you updated as things kind of get solidified, but we are moving that forward. It's going to be a really exciting project, and look forward to hopefully breaking ground here on something soon somewhere. And then the other update that I want to give, And I give updates about these because they're all in the DDA service delivery area. So at some point you all may touch these projects. So that's why I'm bringing them to your attention. The Riverfront District, which is a 200-acre development on the banks of the Chattahoochee River. They have hired TSW to do their site plan work and their planning. We've had several meetings with that group, and they are really moving forward on a project that I think will be an exciting project. They're going to be getting ready to do some public input sessions. We've expressed to them on many occasions that if you want a project to be successful, that you have to have community input and buy-in. Otherwise, it's dead on arrival. So they're going to start that process so they can then start getting feedback from the community about that project as well. I anticipate.
Chris, what's the location of that project? Sorry.
It's the 200 acres. When you cross over Campbellton Road, where Fulton Industrial turns into Cascade Palmetto.
Yep. Uh-huh.
That Georgia Power Line easement that runs through there, the big one.
Yeah.
There's 200 acres that's right adjacent to that power line easement, going from the road all the way back to the river.
Got it. Okay.
Very, very nice project over in that area. But so you all should probably anticipate seeing something from that project in the future as well. And so the only other thing that I want to have Mr. Vice Chair, moving to the next section of the Main Street program. Since our last meeting, we've hired a Main Street manager, Caitlin King, who manages the Red Oak Historic District. And she's been doing a phenomenal job. This is her 8th week, and she's probably done more work in 8 weeks than I've done in 3 years. But just really excited to have her on board. Before we let her get kicked off on her presentation, we also this week offered a job to an individual to also take over the Old National District. And so we will have another person who will just do economic development on Old National. That person will start on August the 2nd. Don, definitely going to have her talk to you because I know how passionate you are about Old National, but I'm really excited to have, that person on board. One of the things that I was really adamant about is the areas in the city that needed to be revitalized. We need to have somebody on the ground that they're focusing on that day in and day out. And the mayor and council agreed with that. And I've been very supportive in that effort. And so having 2 individuals just focusing on those areas are going to be really vital to our revitalization areas. So having said that, I'm going to let Caitlin talk about what she's been working on and how she's been moving Red Oak forward, and you should anticipate similar activity for Old National. All right, Caitlin, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to show you what we've got going on over here so far. I've prepared just a brief presentation to help you guys visualize what we're trying to do over here. Do I have the ability to share my screen yet?
Yeah, I have shared screen on. Be mindful, you have double monitors too, so you might enter.
Yeah, there's like a lot going on in this office. All right, I got it, I think. Can everyone see my screen? Great. So I just kind of wanted to touch on a few of the main points over here in Red Oak. So for those of you that don't know what we have actually defined as the district, here's a map. So basically we're covering from Washington Road over to Welcome All. And we've kind of taken our own approach in designing this area to say we're going to have a residential area as well as a commercial district. In my time here so far, I've just been so blown away by how adorable the residential housing behind us is. We have houses from the 40s, 50s, 60s that are all very well maintained. There's a lot of pride you can tell that folks have. So now we want to help build up the commercial district to make sure that the people living in these areas are going to have the kind of shops and entertainment that they deserve to see over here. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the history of Red Oak, but something that I think is very important for the storytelling of the area is to do a deep dive on everything that's happened in Red Oak. We have over 170 years of history here. And, you know, the story, I think, is very rich. There's a lot of great historical figures who have actually resided in Red Oak or who have stopped through. So we've hired a local historian who actually lived in Red Oak growing up to help make a booklet for the community so that they can get engaged and familiarized. I think a lot of people around here don't necessarily know how rich and storied Red Oak's history is. So I've gone ahead and just taken the time to go visit the old Campbell County Historical Society, pull some images, and really start being able to say, you know, what was where. So when we get more walkability in this area and mixed use developments, we can do kind of a walking trail to let people really identify with what was here before. Not to idealize what that previous history was, but to just kind of say, like, you're living in a very cool part of, you know, Georgia history, and you are the future of that area. So let's figure out what we as a community can do to move us forward and start telling our own story. Let's take ownership of all the great things that we're doing and you know, change, revitalize and change the narrative so that people know how wonderful it actually is over here. You know, I've been here for 8 weeks now. Every business owner I've met is super passionate about the area. Every resident that I've talked to loves where they've lived. I have a couple of people identified for our board who have lived here for 35 years. And they're wonderful people who are just so excited to capture this energy and really build up their neighborhood. So that's some of the history. We'll have a whole booklet for you to check out on our website once that gets done. We have developed a logo that I think kind of has like a little bit of a cool edge to it, but is also classic and historic, and is something we could put all over the place to really start branding the area. We have big plans to have, you know, streetlight banners. I would love to see someone carrying a Red Oak coffee mug around, having, like they do in Grant Park and in Eastlake, giving folks residential signs on their homes to say, I'm part of the Red Oak district. I'm proud to be here. This is a historic place, and really kind of fostering that sense of civic pride and letting people really identify with the area and dig their roots in some more. And these are our goals, you know, just a few things that we're tackling. So I kind of put it into 5 key points of what I'm jumping on board to do. So right now I'm doing the foundational stuff, which is branding the district. So developing that booklet, getting signs going, identifying banners and plaques to say, like, this is what was what, and these are the buildings we have in the area that are historic and valuable to us. Let's turn them into community spaces, you know, websites, social media, all that stuff. I've gotten all the hashtags, handles, all the things. And then really developing a robust event and programming calendar so that we are always doing stuff here to really create a good experience for folks that come to Red Oak. I want people to associate Red Oak with art and culture and music and concerts and being the place where we have the best holiday lights. We can do that. You know, it's just going to take a little bit of organization, community activism, but I believe the infrastructure is here to do it. And then going off of that into business advocacy and really helping people start compliant businesses in the city of South Fulton. We are going to give them the tools that they maybe don't even know they need. And that's going to be born out of the Collab South Center. We're going to start a business incubator program where we're giving people an 8-week crash course in what owning a business actually looks like and how to do things by the book. I want to be an advocate for folks and help them with the city, get them through permitting, get things done compliantly, and really launch successful businesses. So that might start with them having a small storefront and an incubator space that turns into a larger shop front one day. And then maybe they'll have multiple locations. But we can do that through advertising their businesses, teaching them the right stuff, and then potentially providing facade grants and those kind of things to help things look better. We're also going to be Main Street certified, so we're working on getting all of those credentials together. we're already doing the things that Main Street wants from us, but they're a great resource for us to help us do everything by the book, top notch, make sure that we are a shining example of what a Main Street program can be in Georgia. And then we've been having all these great conversations with local property owners and figuring out kind of what a grand master plan of what Red Oak could look like. To me, I see it as being almost like an arts district and having some really cool culture and historical value, and being that spot in South Fulton where people are like, oh, I want to go to that exhibit, or I want to go see that show on the lawn, or I want to go to that festival. So that's kind of where I'm seeing things going. So we're going to kick off that kind of vibe with the first annual Red Oak District Art Festival. It's going to be September 18th, and I partnered with the New Life AME Zion Church. They actually have the oldest building in Red Oak. It was built in 1914. They're lovely, and they're going to let us use their front lawn, and they have a bunch of side lawn to host an art festival. And so I've already procured food trucks, but I want to also have live music, artists, vendors, other forms of entertainment. And we're going to start small for this first one, just to kind of get the pulse and let people know that this is what Red Oak is trending towards. But I think we have a real opportunity to kind of say like, all right, this is what we're doing over here. Buckle up. It's going to be a really cool place to live. So that kind of concludes what I've been working on. If you guys have any questions about Main Street stuff, you can check it out over on the Main Street websites. That's my contact information. If you have any ideas, if you want to just come over and do a walking tour with me, I'm down to show you guys what I'm envisioning. And I'm just really excited to be here.
Well, I certainly have a comment. Wow. And Christopher, I don't know who you're hiring for Old National, but you better match that intensity and that passion, man. This is really exciting. I do have a question. You know, I understand Main Street has its standards and that kind of thing, but it's not a concern. But I guess it's up to you, Christopher, to tie all of these programs together to make sure that you know, however we define ourselves as individual districts and that kind of thing, that we're all part of the city of South Fulton and how that all ties together. So not a concern.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really equate it. So when you look at South Fulton, especially now that we've acquired 10 more square miles, I really equate, you know, the South Fulton very similar to like the city of Atlanta. And so you're going to have, it's just so massive that you're going to have multiple of things. And so you're going to have all of these districts that are really programmed to be, you know, really cool areas. And even in those areas, you have sub areas. So if you look at like places like Midtown is a area. It has a Caitlin that manages events and things that happen in Midtown. But then there's little sub areas within Midtown. And so that's where you get areas like, you know, Goat Farm and places like that are kind of like little areas cool little areas that you hang out in. So you really envision the same thing happening here. So Red Oak, you know, has a Caitlin, and they're going to have you know, for lack of a better term, a cool vibe. Old National, we really feel like that we got a great person to come on board to be a champion for Old National as well. So you're going to start seeing the same level of commitment and programming, and we anticipate, you know, creating an Old National district logo. And so it'd be the same type of energy and the same focus. And then that way, you know, that's the creating the positive experiences is what's going to resonate with developers and investors. And so, you know, I tell people all the time from economic development standpoint, you can't arrest your way into economic development in an area. Like we could provide all the law enforcement that Chief Meadows wants. That's not going to be enough to fix Old National. You got to have these other things that need to come in and create that energy. And that's what the Main Street program does. And that's really what we're going to be doing. And right now it's just Red Oak and Old National because those are the areas that really need reinvestment. Other areas in our city right now organically have the investment, and they don't really need a person out there per se at this point like Old National and Red Oak does. So we're really excited about the things that are going to be happening in the future and the energy that they bring.
Well, welcome, Caitlin, and Great job. Impressive. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, no, we gotta do all the things.
Thank you, Caitlin. And I'd like to be one of those persons who set up a opportunity to take a tour with you. So I'll send you an email.
Yeah, shoot me an email. I love having visitors. Right now, it's just me and Mr. Pike in our office, so we're always amenable to guests.
Yeah, Caitlin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, this is Ron St. James. I agree with that also. Like Mr. Wimbush was saying, you have beautiful energy. I love your spirit, and I would love to take that tour also.
Yeah, come on over.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
And I would just like to say for the record that your first bond inducement resolution was in Red Oak. So Project Savior is actually in the Red Oak Historic District. So
yeah, it worked out. Yeah. I was like, I know that road. I pass by there every day.
At this point, that really concludes all of our economic development updates. The only thing that I have left is just wanted to make you all aware for the South Fulton Convention and Visitors Bureau. We just had Savor Soul Food, which was our restaurant week, and was a great success. We had an opportunity to promote a lot of the local restaurants in the community. We got a lot of news coverage as well. They came down and did a lot of features with a lot of our restaurants. So we got a lot of promotion out of that, and just really excited about the work that's happening around our tourism efforts. And while they're not directly related to the work that the DDA is doing, they definitely help make the job easier from a promotional standpoint. So I just wanted to make sure you all stayed in the loop on those things as well.
Very good. Thank you. I see next we have required basic development authority training. Is that you,
Yes.
Dan?
Am I the agenda item for this?
You are.
Well, it's the sidebar conference.
Okay. Well, I hope y'all can come. You know, we had one in June, and Madam Chair was kind enough to give us a few kind words about it. These are, if I say so myself, really good. What we do is to break them into 2 days. They're virtual. So, and nobody wants to, I mean, I'm on the computer like 12 hours a day, but most people aren't. So that gives you 4 hours one day and 4 hours the next day. And that gives you 8 hours of training, which is all you need to fulfill your training requirements for your current term as a director. In addition to which, this is really useful information. It's the basics because everybody needs the basics, and sometimes they change, like our open meeting statute changed, as we talked about earlier. We do have some aspects that are more advanced, but we do them in a way that they have something for everybody. We've done a case study on how to do a new business park recently that was very well received. And there's a great amount of audience participation through chats and through asking questions. We've had experts from Georgia Tech speak about the economy and something that's going, all the things that are going on there. And that affects all of us. It affects economic development, redevelopment, board members personally, and the city and everything. It's done in a very digestible way. And we talk about the things, for example, the MOU that we talked about earlier. How do you, what's the return on incentives? How do you measure that? How do you manage it? What are the deal documents? What are some war stories about things like that? It costs nothing. And when we were doing these in person, I would even buy your lunch. But so I guess I owe you a sandwich or two if you come. But please, if you can, do register. If you've been to one before, come to this one if you've got the time and the interest, because we'd love to have you. And there's always something new.
So Dan, how is this different from the one we just did, from the training we just did?
There's not a lot of difference, you know, in the 3 months from June to September. There's not going to be a lot of difference. We may talk about the change in the Open Meetings Act and the findings, which y'all, I mean, you've got what you need already from this morning, so don't worry about that. So if you went in June, there's not going to be enough difference in September, but the presentations are different and the people are interesting. So if you would like to come, we'd love to have you. But for those of you who have not had training or have not had training since your last, well, you wouldn't have, this would be our first term for this. But in any event, if you've not had training, please do come. I think you will enjoy it. Now, you'll certainly have the opportunity to learn a lot, I think. And it's free, no charge.
Very good, duly noted. Any questions about that from for Dan? All right, we'll move along. We have the public comment section. If there are those of you who are attending that would have a question or comments, now is your time.
Mr. Vice Chair, I don't see any public. I think the people who aren't on the board are with Dan's firm, if I'm not mistaken. They may have public comment.
There's Joe Krolikowski. Joe was a friend and colleague that was with me for a while and then just got the wanderlust. And then we were able to recruit him back, and we're working really hard. And he's helped on the bonds that we talked about earlier in this meeting. So there he is, live and in person. So we have support, and we've got the whole team and the whole firm behind the South Fulton DDA. Looking forward to doing great things. And like Chris said earlier, this project we talked about, that's just the first of many good things happening. And I think you all are going to enjoy working with the tax allocation district. There's a lot, you hear tax and you think, oh, bad and dull. But this is an opportunity to do something with that increment and to control how it's done. And it's a very critical role that the DDA will play. And I think everyone will enjoy that as well.
Well, thank you. I know, speaking for myself and hopefully for board members, I look forward to really diving in and getting deeply entrenched in all of this and really understanding it. And that's why I was so encouraged by the questions we had earlier. And I think it's a good thing that, let's ask questions and let's be engaged and really become experts, if there is such a thing, and or competent, overly competent in doing this job. So are there any comments from the board? Before that, I want to say, Madam Chair, I hope you feel better. Thanks for joining us anyway. Board members, any comments, questions? Last call. All
Madam
right.
Chair's been very active in the chat. She can't talk, but she can still type.
All right. All right. Hearing no other comments, questions from board members, let's be advised our next meeting is August 20th. And be reminded also that we'll have minutes from the previous minutes, the meeting, as well as minutes from this meeting at the August 20th meeting. If nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Who will second that?
Second.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, and look forward to seeing you in August. And a reminder, a lot of things are going on in meetings, so you're welcome to attend public meetings as well to keep us informed. Thank you. And if that's it, we stand adjourned.
Mr. Vice Chair, you're gonna carry that motion?
Oh, yes. Can we? All in favor of adjourning? Motion carries.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I figured everybody wanted to get off, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I hear you.
I can hear him saying yes, Chris.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.